guys, so it's been a while since I've made a video, sorry about that. But I was kind of struggling with what to make a video about. And I was trying to decide between making another like DBT skills instructions video or making a little bit more of a personal video. I've decided to go with the more personal video, so quick trigger warning for this video, I am going to be talking about suicide, I'm going to be talking about self-harm, and the overall topic is going to be how depression feels to me, and then I'm going to end the video with a little bit about what I am doing to help with my depression so I can end on a little bit more of a positive note. So if those trigger warnings apply to you, please do not watch this video. I don't want to make anyone feel worse. But if you are interested in hearing more about how depression has affected me and maybe how I can help other people feel less alone in it, then please keep watching this video. Thanks. So I'm going to start the video with a little bit of a story. First of all, I just want to say, like, everyone experiences depression differently, so my experience isn't necessarily going to be your experience, but this is how I experience depression and how it affects me directly. So I'm going to start with just a little story about what happened earlier this week, actually. So I have been feeling extremely depressed. November, October going into November, and then December are always the hardest months for me, and with knowing that November is coming up, it's some trauma anniversaries, I have some difficulties with the holidays, so as I get later and later into October, I always start to feel worse and worse because I'm dreading going through this really difficult time again. So, I believe it was last week, I ended up, I'm not going to go into too many specific details, but I worked out a plan to end my life, and I actually started to take steps to get ready for it. So I had everything that I needed to do it, and I was ready to do it. The morning that I kind of was planning to do this, I got up, did my normal thing, and I went to therapy. I have therapy 6 days a week, which people always say is like, oh my gosh, that's so much therapy, but it's really helpful for me. So I went to therapy and I had every intention of not telling my therapist my plan. I wanted to keep this to myself because I wanted to be able to act on it. And I knew if I said it to him, he was going to find a way to prevent me from doing this. So I had no plans, on being honest, that day. We ended up having a very emotional conversation, and I ended up sharing my plan, which, again, I was not expecting to do, but it's good that I did it. So I was able to tell him, like, look, I am not doing well, and I have the things that I need to kill myself, and I am planning on doing that today. So we talked about it, and he helped me get the things and get rid of them, and ultimately helped me to not go through with my plan. I've had many mixed emotions about this afterwards. So this happened like, I don't know, I think like 3 days ago at this point. So this is still very fresh. On the one hand, I was relieved that I was able to talk about this and someone was able to see me and see how much I was struggling and was able to support me and help me. And that made me feel really good. That made me feel cared for. And that made me glad that I was able to get rid of the things and not go through with my plan. On the other hand, I feel awful and sad because this is what my depression does to me. My depression says to me that, like, you're never going to get out of this. You are always going to be this depressed. You're always going to feel this terrible. The only way that you can get out of this is if you kill yourself. So I had that plan, and I had the things I needed to do it, and I was going to do it, and then I was stopped. And part of me was really unhappy about that. I'm always like a little embarrassed to admit that because it shouldn't, like, I think for myself, like, it shouldn't be that sad of a thing to not kill yourself. But the truth is, when you're suffering with depression and when you're suffering with it long term and it feels awful all the time, it's going to make you sad when you feel like you have a way out and then that way out is taken from you. And that's something that I've kind of gone through my whole life, where I've always had a plan, had intent, occasionally acted on it, But having the plan there is what made me feel a little bit better, because I was like, I have a way out. When this gets way too hard, I have a way out. Losing that way out was really, really difficult for me, even though I fully understand that it is a good thing that I was able to talk about it and I was able to not follow through with that plan. It's still difficult for me. The other thing that depression kind of makes me struggle with a lot is self-harm. I'm not going to go into the specific type, but I have come to use self-harm as an emotional release, and it is something that helps me feel a little bit better in the moment, even though I know it's ineffective overall. So that's another thing that depression has really been kind of hammering into my head lately, is like, you deserve to be punished. This is a way to punish yourself, and you're going to feel a little bit better for maybe like 10 minutes afterwards, and then you're going to feel really guilty and awful, but like, we're going to ignore that part. I'm working on not ignoring that part and trying to do things like I use ice packs sometimes when I really want to self-harm, and that's a way that it doesn't give me that instant, intense emotional relief that I get from self-harming, but it gives me a more long-term relief. If I can just get through the really difficult moment, I know I'm going to feel better long-term about it, because I'm not going to feel the guilt and shame that I have associated with self-harm. So for me, depression feels really, really dark and really empty. I feel like sometimes I don't feel like a person. I feel like I am watching someone else go through life, and I just don't want to be there anymore. And so one of the things that makes me do is isolate. So I tend to withdraw from friends and just isolate myself and stay by myself. One of the things that has helped me a lot with this is therapy. So like I said earlier, I go to therapy 6 times a week. And even when I'm withdrawing from my friends, when I know I have that commitment that I've made to be in therapy, it gets me out of the house and has me communicating with another person and helps me feel better. I think therapy is fantastic. I think everybody should go to therapy regardless of your mental health concerns. I think everybody should have a therapist, because it's so helpful to have another person to talk to that you can tell things to and know that you're not going to be judged by them. And that has been a huge, huge help in my life. Another similar related thing that has been a huge help in my life is medication. So I have treatment-resistant depression, which means that I typically don't respond to medications or other treatments that I've tried. I've tried ketamine, I've tried Spravato, I've tried transcranial magnetic stimulation, and I've tried way too many antidepressants to count. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some that help a little bit. So I've found kind of a balance of some vitamins and supplements that I take and some medications that I take. And the two of these combined are helping me, even though they're not quite as much as I would want them to. They still do a little bit, and I can recognize that. The last thing that I want to talk about that helps me is being involved in my church. So I'm a Christian, and I believe I talked about that on like my very first video that I posted on this channel. That was actually a video that I made for my church, and then I just reposted it here. But being involved and active in my faith is something that helps me a lot. It's been really, really difficult lately because there's a bit of a mismatch kind of between things that I believe and things that my church believes, and that's been really difficult and really hard on my faith, because I feel sometimes like I'm losing my faith a little bit. But I found that kind of being active and engaged on my own is something that's really helpful. Something that I've recently started doing is I'm reading through the Psalms in the Bible, and a lot of the Psalms are extremely depressing, and just the writer is talking about how miserable and awful they feel, and I can read those and be like, hey, I feel like that too. I'm not alone with this. So that has been a huge help. And then the other thing related to that is a huge driving force behind my life is wanting to help other people. I feel like what I'm going through is terrible and awful. I hate the way I feel. I don't want to I don't want to deal with this anymore. But if I can use what I'm going through to help other people, then it feels worth it. So one of the things that I do with my church is I run a support group for sexual abuse survivors, and that has been a huge help in my life because it allows me to focus on helping other people and use the things I've gone through to help other people, and in turn listening to the people share about what has happened to them makes me feel less alone. It makes me feel a little bit better as well. So just to wrap up, the main reason that I've made this video is I want people to feel less alone. Again, my huge driving force in my life is wanting to help people. So the purpose of making this is if someone is watching this and someone can relate, first of all, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. I know how awful and terrible it feels, but I want you to know that you're not alone and you don't have to deal with it alone. There's other people who have experienced similar things, even though no one is going to have your exact same experience. It doesn't mean that there aren't people that can understand and come alongside you and help you feel better. So that is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.